The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome to Scarefest Radio's new online offering, Body and Spirit. Tonight we're talking paranormal BS with our lovely guest, Stephanie Bingham. Say hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Now, before we get started, I do have to apologize to Stephanie. She probably didn't even realize this happened. I had invited her on the show. I had that same week invited someone else named Stephanie. Stephanie Bingham answers my text, and I actually thought it was the other Stephanie, and so I actually was telling her about the show, and then I saw that's Stephanie freaking Bingham. She knows what the hell it is that I do. So I apologize for wasting your time with that brief part of the conversation, but everybody, if you're unfamiliar with Stephanie, she is a regular at the Scarefest. She's presented like damn near every year, I assume, and usually more than one topic, because she's just so lovely and so much fun to listen to, and tolerates me just up to a point. I can always tell. I try not to cross that little line there, but right now I have my wife here next to me, so I'm fairly safe because she knows that I won't get too far out of hand. So how are things in the psychic medium business, Stephanie?
Busy. It's very, very busy this time of year.
Is it? Now, okay, we're going to go inside baseball a little bit. Have you've been a psychic since birth, pretty much. But I mean, she was on one of the TV shows where she was in college and her roommate had a ghost or something like that. We've covered that on previous shows, and obviously I've already forgot the details. The important thing is School Spirits. That was the name of the episode. I do remember that. But as a psychic medium, okay, now you mentioned the time of year. Is that something that you've noticed that is cyclical every year, or are you also seeing a trend in? I'm not going to say, I believe we got the same number roughly of ghosts that we always had, but it seems to me that people are noticing them more. Are you noticing that? Are you getting more reports, not only for the time of year, but compared to previous years?
Absolutely. This year has been especially bad for whatever reason. Anytime you go into that dark side of the year, so essentially fall in through the beginning of spring, is traditionally the time when ghosts are most active and most close to the side, if you will. But the last several years, it seemed, at least in my end, that there have just been a lot of extra ghosts all throughout the time. There's like the summer where they're supposed to sort of calm down and go and be quiet. They haven't been doing it lately. So I've been getting reports all along, and I agree. People are seeing them a lot, and they are making a lot of noise and just being irritating more often than not.
Do you think that is do you think it's a ghost thing, or do you think it's a cultural thing? I cannot talk tonight. Where we're seeing them on TV, we're seeing all these TV shows. In other words, you've heard me say it. I don't believe in ghosts, but let me tell you my ghost story. In other words, do you think it's an actual uptick in activity, or do you think these people are more accepting to acknowledge the shadow in the corner of their eye?
On some level, I do think it is an uptick in activity because I believe in ghosts, and I've seen a lot more activity on the sides of the year where traditionally I shouldn't see them, or at least as often. But I've seen a lot of people that are more comfortable talking about it, so they're more comfortable reporting it, you know? So I think it's a little of both, really.
Now, I'm going to take you back something you said about the time of year.
Mhm.
Now, when I got into ghost hunting, this was before I ever even played with pretending to be a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed what you just said. I liked hunting in, now first, not cold weather because I'm a big pussy. But in other words, I'm not going to Waverly Hills in December, people. Ain't
What?
happening. No, not at all. But I will say in other words, comfortable buildings in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually noticed that. Now, my theory is the wrong word, but I think there was a correlation. You know how in the wintertime that's when you shock your hand on the doorknob.
Mm-hmm.
I always wondered if it wasn't something energetic in the air that thinned the veil, to put it in proper terminology, or do ghosts just like cold weather? Do you have any input on that? What do you feel about it?
I think my whole thing with that is the more you look back, the farther back you look, you can see it even in ancient times. The times of the year where the days get shorter, as always the time that people would report more ghosts, or that's when the ceremonies to contact the dead always were. Especially in Egypt, you find it even there that the darker it got the earlier, that was the best time for reaching out and crossing the veil between the two worlds. So I think it is something truly intrinsic to that time of the year. And I'm not sure if it has to do with what you're talking about, the static electricity, or if it is the amount of daylight it is, or just something that little, you know?
I I almost now I'm not saying it doesn't have to do with daylight. Let me put that out there. I almost don't want to embrace that though, because I've spent my entire paranormal career telling people stop ghost hunting at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's you trip over shit. They're there 24/7. There's just as many of them. Infrared cameras work great in daylight. Full spectrum cameras work better in daylight because UV light, and that's a that's a technology lesson for everybody. But now you think it might just be, now, okay, let me take that just one step further. Do you think they're more active because of the lack of daylight, extra night, or that because we tend to be drawn to the scary, the weird, when it's dark? That's when you can walk around all day and you wouldn't know. Well, you might, but the average person wouldn't know if a ghost walked up and licked them on the face. But at night, people start noticing. In other words, my wife, now she'll ghost hunt with me all damn day and all damn night, and walk through a haunted building with nothing but a flashlight and a pair of dowsing rods. Won't go outside with the dogs by herself. But you put her in a haunted building, she's fine. So do you think that maybe it could be mental in the, and even if you want to go, you and I talked a lot about thought manifestations. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that maybe there's something about having that extra darkness that makes us dial the old ghost phone, if you will?
I think it might make us more susceptible to it, or at the very least, more open to it. But the simple fact that you can trace it back so far into history, in my mind, points to there being some legitimate and very concrete connection between the dark side of the year and the ghost activity. Now, if that comes from the lightness or the darkness of that year, or just it being ghost summer break, whatever it happens to be, I don't actually know, but I know that
The ghosts fly south for the winter. That no,
exactly.
I,
They come to this side to warm up. What is it?
um, you know what? They might actually do it because people encounter cold spots and they go, "Oh, they're drawing the energy out of the air." I call bullshit on that. They don't draw energy out of thin air. But I do think when the veil parts, if you will, in other words, when they interact with her, I think that it annihilates energy in the air and creates that cold spot. In other words, I don't think they're using it, but I do think the energy is annihilated. So there's my word for the evening, everyone. Annihilate. That's and I know how to pronounce that one. Now everybody, if you don't know Stephanie, her well, not her day job. Her day job's like fairly normal. She's a historian, but her psychic medium job is to go around to well, not necessarily haunted locations normally, places that normally they have historic significance that they don't want haunted. Would you say that's a fair way to assess your situation?
To some extent, yes, absolutely.
I hit the tree and missed the target. Well then, okay, if I was that close, how would you describe your psychic life?
Well, I spend a lot of time in and around museums and historic places, and unfortunately, every single one I've ever worked at has been haunted. And a lot of them don't like that. It makes the alarms go off, it makes the guards nervous, it makes the guests nervous, and you need them to calm down. So it's not that they don't want it haunted, it's that they want it to be quietly haunted. And contained.
Quietly haunted. I understand that. But now this is another phenomenon that I've noticed, and now this I attribute 100% to television. 10, 15 years ago, places did not even want you to know they were haunted. They did not, I mean, museums, I don't know, because look at me, people, I'm not a museum guy. But you know, Joe's Bar and Grill would say, oh, hell no, there's no ghost here. And now places are finally starting to embrace it more. And sometimes I think this makes shit up just because it is a tourist thing now. Mm-hmm. What are museums? Are they coming around to that side of the thinking, or are they still pretty much, no, let's leave the straights out of it?
A lot of them are very much coming into the idea of, yes, the ghosts are there, and yes, it is good for business. And they sort of want to capitalize on that. A lot of them want you to come in, or want me to come in, and tell them what the ghost is and what he's doing and what he wants and what he's attached to and why he's here and how they can make him act up at certain times and not others, so they can get people in there to see the ghost on like a ghost tour or a ghost hunt, things like that. Especially if it's an object, they like sort of highlighting things like that. But other museums, especially the ones that are more financially solvent, like to know about their ghosts, but don't necessarily open it to the public unless specifically asked. Some of the really well-heeled museums will want to know everything about their ghosts, don't want it gone, want it quiet, but they want to know everything so that they can use that if they decide to.
I know damn good and well there is a story behind what you just said about sometimes wanting to kick up the activity on demand, which personally, okay, see, this is how much better of a psychic she is than me, because I couldn't kick up activity on demand if my life depended on it. Tell me the story of someplace that has said, we want to leverage this ghost as a tourist attraction at 2:00 Sunday afternoon.
So it's happened more than once. It's a very common thing, actually, from my experience, where they will want you to come in and legitimately find their ghost and make it perform like a little monkey or something. But I think the most recent one in my experience was a museum that I worked at for a while. And they had several haunted objects, but one of them was not directly owned by said museum. It was on loan. And it was only going to be there for a short period of time. But they knew for certain that when this object came in, things started getting crazy. So they wanted to make use of it while they had it, essentially. So they had you come in, and they started doing these little condensed tours through just that area with just that object and a couple of others. And they always wanted, when that happened, oh, can we make it so that every time a tour goes through here, something happens? That's what they wanted. They wanted that ghost to react every single time that you walk through that room with a tour group.
And was that successful?
Yeah. No. To get something to be that reliable, no. You need a mechanical thing to sort of, I need to hit a button and make something rattle,
See, okay, now that doesn't surprise me. That's my experience. I don't think that most things that ghosts do when we notice them, I think most of the time they don't even expect it to work. In other words, I don't think they can perform on demand for the non-psychic public.
To some extent, I mean, the amount of energy it takes for a ghost to manifest is nearly impossible to replicate over and over again on a regular schedule. Like, if you want something every hour, that's insane. It's not going to happen. You want something every 2 weeks and you've got somebody really dedicated to it, you could probably make that happen. But that person creating that energy is probably going to be on the floor somewhere for the rest of that 2-week period.
Okay, but now you described it as the person being able to manifest the energy.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that ghost, and I don't care if you take all the damn flashlight batteries in the world and let them drain your damn batteries. I don't think that ghost, without, we'll call it psychic intervention, I don't think that your typical ghost can go, okay, when we walk into a building as paranormal investigators, show yourself to me. I do not think that a ghost can do that if they wanted to. As a rule.
And are accidental.
Yes. I think when we see them, the vast majority, and when I say vast, I mean 99.9%. Now, I do think sometimes that it's okay, I'll give it a shot, and then it works, and I think it freaks them out just as bad as it does whoever sees it.
Yep.
So, okay. See, that's why I like her. We agree so much. We're going to take our first commercial break, everybody. Our new sponsor, our new presenting sponsor, Mama Ruby's family of holistic, mystic, and something else shows. Have you checked out the Mama Ruby's family of metaphysical and spiritual shows? The Mystical Fair in Lexington, Kentucky, Lexington's only monthly psychic and holistic healing arts fair. The Inner Light Festivals in Louisville in June and Lexington in November. And watch for Mama Ruby's Expo coming in 2020. Plus, Mama Ruby's Meta Lecture Series, featuring interesting guests speaking on fascinating subjects. Start your journey now at mamarubies.com for more information. And welcome back to Body and Spirit, brought to you by Mama Ruby's. Coming up on their calendar, the next event will be the Mystical Fair in Lexington, March 16th and 17th. And then they have the Mystical Fair road trip to E-Town, which I'm sure is at Akashic Awareness. That is 30th and 31st. But we've got two Mystical Fair events. You can go to mysticalfairlex.com to find out more, or just go to mamarubies.com and find all the links there. A quick, cute story about my new sponsor is that I want to point out that, yes, Bev at Mama Ruby's knows that the name of the show is paranormal or metaphysical, whatever I'm talking about that particular time, BS. That is, it is. So she embraces the concept of what I do. So I was a little, when they were talking about it, I said, now you do realize yes, we understand. So so I wanted to thank my new sponsor coming in like that, and they will be the presenting sponsor for the immediate future of Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit. Back to my guest, Ms. Stephanie Bingham. Now, reason that the reason that Stephanie is one of my favorite guests is she is as near as I can tell. Now, granted, I've never worked with her. But as near as I can tell, she is one of the most gifted psychics. Because, first of all, if you can get the reputation she has, you got to be doing something right. But the main thing is that most of my casual observations as a would-be psychic she validates and tells me that sometimes like that, I'm not too far off the track. Now we talked about this before, but the haunted objects. First of all, do you have any input? I was talking to somebody the other day about attachments. Last episode of Body and Spirit, we were talking about attachments. And of course, you've got physical attachments where they attach to people. You've got soft and hard attachment. We went through all that. I've never really understood, with a few exceptions, why a ghost, defined as the all or part of the human soul that is left behind when someone sheds their mortal coils. Now she's encountered all kinds of weird shit beyond ghost. But when we're talking about ghost, why would a ghost be attached to a rather mundane item?
I have two very good examples for you there of human spirits. I've got a lot of examples of the non-human ones too, but as far as the humans go, I have one in my house right now. I found him at a like a junk shop, like a flea market kind of thing. And I was wandering through this place, and there was this small child, like little kid, clearly not alive, clearly there, just sort of hanging out. And I couldn't quite place what he was really attached to. So eventually, after trying to pretend like I wasn't crazy and there wasn't a dead thing trying to talk to me, I eventually just ended up sort of having a conversation with the kid. And he was there because his marbles were there. And he's probably 3, 4-ish, very small child, very obsessed with his toy marbles. Crazy obsessed with these toy marbles. And long story short, I ended up going and purchasing his marbles in their little milk jug that they were in. And he is entirely connected to those objects because that was his favorite thing when he was alive. And he died not really knowing that he was going to die and isn't quite grasping the fact that he is dead and has been for a great many years at this point in time. So what he wants to do is sit and play with his marbles. It's his favorite toy. That's his connection to that object. But on the sort of other hand of that, a friend of mine has a very sort of different idea. There was a murder in, I believe, Texas or somewhere of the kind. And the lady was rather insane, as most murderers are. And so she went through and killed a bunch of people, ended up getting death for that action, and was causing a lot of trouble after death. And so she was bound against her will to her own ashes to keep her contained. So through literally, if you want to look at it that way, a magical working to keep her from harassing other people.
Now, okay, those two. See, okay, you pulled two examples that I would. Well, you got duh. The marble. Now that makes sense. Now, when you're talking about anyone that is mentally, I'm going to say immature, although it also applies to. I found out like Alzheimer's patients, if they pass away, the mental state when someone passes away, I do realize affects how they spend the afterlife. Mm-hmm. Now but now when you get into the voodoo and the hocus pocus, that's voodoo. Another animal. That's different. But like the story that I tell. Now the one time I actually found. Now I have found ghosts with soft attachments, what I call soft attachments to people. In other words, they just literally hide in their aura, and you can kind of root them out. But the only time I have actually found what I would call an attachment to an object, it was the most mundane thing in the world. It was a freaking kitchen cabinet. The old type your grandmother had with the little ceramic pull-out shelf and the little cabinets and the flour sifter. One of those. And this was a dude. This wasn't even the woman. This was a dude. And he gave us a big story, and it may have been total bullshit as far as why he was there with it. But I will say, when we said, show us a sign, the freaking doors open on the cabinet. And I still think somebody bumped it because I just said, no, there's no way. That can't happen. But have you encountered something where your brain kind of just went through everything that I did? Why the hell are you here, dude?
That I truly could not place, no. I've never seen something that was that wasn't truly sentimental or due
Okay.
to some sort of magical working. But most of the objects that I have dealt with have been in museums where you have venerated objects, or even at times body parts in those objects, or you have, you know, the items like I'm talking about, like little things of children and things like that, where they get connected. Inhumans get attached to some really strange objects, but they don't like to explain themselves too much. So I don't really have a good explanation for why they end up attached to what they end up attached to at times.
Now, this is actually a repeat question. I'm pretty sure I asked you last time I interviewed you. Dumbest item you ever saw something attached to?
Dumbest item, a book.
Just a book.
Yeah,
Human, human or
you know,
inhuman?
book. It wasn't a first edition. It wasn't a book that they wrote. It was just a book. It wasn't even a book that they seemed to like in life. It was just a book. And I don't understand that one. Like, just why a book? Why?
I am willing to bet you that if in the afterlife, if for some reason I do stick around, I won't be attached to a book. Because I don't even have time. Although, then I would have time to read. Starting to make sense. Now, you've kind of touched on these inhuman spirits. Mm-hmm. Give us some examples or an example. When you talk about inhuman spirits, what are you generally talking about?
When I'm talking about an inhuman spirit, I'm referencing anything that was not alive at some point in time running a human skin suit.
Mm-hmm.
So what people reference as a demon, or what people reference as like animal spirits, native spirits, land spirits, fae, fairies, all that sort of thing, I lump together jinn, all of that. Those are inhuman spirits in my book. But there's different types of them. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm with you there. I'm trying. Mm-hmm. Some of the ones you just cataloged though, and I agree with your little catalog there. I don't understand why some of those might be attached to anything. Fairies, for example. Have you found a fairy attached to an item?
Fairies do not like me, so I do not find them very often at all.
I got one up on her. I got one.
Yeah, they don't like me at all. So
no, I got one. I don't know if she likes me, but I like her. She helped me out on one case, and but she might be gone now. I don't know. But that's an I don't I'm not going to tell my stories here. Okay, so you're of the inhuman spirits that you've encountered. What are they short of your voodoo magic shit? That's going to come up next. What are some items that an inhuman spirit has been attached to?
I've seen them attached to many venerated objects, things that meant something to them, something they were worshipped through, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, yeah. But I want to take it one step further though. You said they were worshipped through. Mm-hmm. How would you something that was worshipped? How would you classify? Are you saying it was demonic, or was it? I guess some earth spirits could present themselves as lower gods, for lack of a better word. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Native American spirits and ground spirits, things that are native to areas that people in the past would have worshipped, whether it be fae or whether it be jinn or whether it be the native spirits here in America.
Okay. Now let's talk about the voodoo magic.
Okay.
Is it common to bind a human? No, we'll talk human spirits here. Is it common to bind a mischievous, if you will, human spirit? Have you encountered that often, where they have been bound through intent, magic, or whatever to an object to keep them out of trouble?
By somebody else or by myself?
Well, let's start with someone else, and then you can tell us your story.
Not very often where it is just a mischievous spirit. If it is something that is aggressive, I've seen it done more than once. I've done it more than once. I mean, if they're causing issues and they refuse to leave and respect boundaries, then you attach them to an object and you get rid of the object and they can't leave.
Okay, now you just said get rid of the object. What does one do with a haunted object that they've just bound the mass murderer spirit to?
Well, the mass murderer is in my friend's basement in her library at the moment, just sort of being.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah, she likes to hand it to people when they walk in the door. Tell me what you feel. Yeah, it's a fun party trick.
Boy, and I deal with this stuff, but now my experience in binding, the only time I ever did any type of binding, and it wasn't even a binding, but I had this brilliant idea. This is how I do psychically. Years of research, people. It popped into my head. Shove his ass in a whiskey bottle or beer bottle. It was a beer bottle. We were somewhere and it was I would call it a conjured. It was really more of a thought form type. It had the qualities of what I would call an elemental, but none of the intelligence. It was, in other words, it wasn't like it put up a big fight. It was, beer bottle, okay. And then we did our little prayer over it, and then basically hid the bottle, tossed it. But so one of these days somebody will dig that up and it'll Armageddon. That I find that very interesting, though. That now. Sometimes that you've had to do it yourself. I don't think we really... Okay, you talked about that one. Now, when you encounter something, there's a lot of ground to cover. We got to break it down between... Let's start with ghost.
Okay.
Your typical ghost causing trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I never really thought about you binding a human spirit to something. You always struck me as the type, no, just remove them forcefully instead of putting them in someone's library. What makes you cross that line? Or did you just find out it's freaking easier?
It's not even so much that it's easier. It's that in the cases where it's been a human spirit that I've bound and removed, it's because I'm not going to be there long enough to ensure that it doesn't come back. And it has a habit of coming back. And essentially, as soon as it decides it's going to try and push the boundary with me, and I don't have the time to sit there and teach it that it's wrong, I put it on an object and I will remove it. Then I'll put that object in the bottom of a lake or a stream or something of that kind where it literally can't manifest.
Okay, we're going to take our next commercial break, and when we come back, we're actually going to get back on topic, which is where we went way out in left field here. Everybody, you're watching Body and Spirit, brought to you by Mama Ruby's. Everyone is talking about CBD oil. Most of us know that CBD is a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, but does not make people high. Its benefits include pain relief, anti-seizure properties, anxiety relief, fights cancer, reduces the risk of diabetes, and it is even used as a sleep aid. Blue Leaf Naturals CBD and hemp products are full-spectrum hemp extract oils. They use only hemp grown in Kentucky, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses and helping you and your family stay healthy and well. Blue Leaf Naturals, created with care from seed to shelf. Visit their website at blueleafnaturals.com. Blue Leaf Naturals, a Kentucky proud company. And we're back with Body and Spirit. Incidentally, I'm trying the CBD oil for pain relief. My shoulder that everybody listens to me whine about whenever I'm at a convention, I'm trying the CBD oil to see if it makes my shoulder better. It's fresh. I've just started, but FYI, they made me pay for this shit. They sponsored the show and then made me buy the product. So, I did invest in that little bit. Our guest tonight is Stephanie Bingham. Now we're going to get back on topic. We're going to talk about the spirits of Bourbon. I want to say county, just because they dicked it up in the program, and then coming to find out the lecture that Stephanie gave was Spirits of Bourbon Country. And that's because that way she can not just cover one county that doesn't even have a distillery in it. Where are, in your opinion, Give me like 3 of the most haunted places you've encountered in the state of Kentucky.
3 of the most haunted locations, just in general? Like cities?
No, something. 3 places that somebody, even if they couldn't get into, could go, oh, that place. Then we'll go cities. We'll go cities next. Let's start with specific locations where you can walk in middle of the night and some ghost will rattle your chains.
I've spent a lot of time in Claremont at Jim Beam, the distillery there, going through everything, and that place is crawling with them. So I think that one is super haunted, and it's a bit less well known than a lot of the other ones. So I always get a lot there. And then I know, like, Waverly, I like going out there, and you always feel something when you go there, big and dark, and I've always had activity when I went there. So I've always thought of that one as reliably haunted, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one,
That's all right. All right, we'll stop it too. We're gonna talk about those 2. First of all, what's up with haunted distilleries? I understand movie theaters. I understand hospitals.
Huh?
I understand bars. I understand why Bobby Mackey's would be haunted.
Yep.
I can't for the life of me understand what the idea behind haunting a bourbon warehouse is.
It's not even so much the warehouse. Think about the people who've been there making this. At the property in Claremont, they have been making whiskey on that property for well over 150 years.
Okay.
People doing the exact same process over and over again. And think about it. When you have alcohol involved, you have very happy people. They very much like
well, not at work.
Labeling it while they're making it.
Well,
people.
We just let the cat out of the bag on the Kentucky bourbon industry, made by a bunch of drunks. No, okay, I guess I see your point. My thing is, if I was going now, unless like a bourbon barrel rolled off the shelf and smashed me, and then and so in other words, that's where I shed off my mortal coil. I can't imagine after you get rid of the body, the skin suit, that I'm going back to work. That doesn't register with me.
A lot of the attachments a lot of the ghosts, attachments, a lot of the things that I've seen at the distillery has been people that had a true, like, emotional connection to the place. One of the master distillers is still there. He is long dead, but his favorite warehouse where he would go and think, where he went with his grandfather and his great-grandfather to walk the aisles and learn the trade and just that sort of family history, he is still there. He still walks that place. Another one at that location in general is a gentleman who was a little off when he was still alive, like not quite the most stable of people. But his family ran a boarding house there, and that was his home. That was his house. That's what he ran. That's what he did. So he's so much not even the bourbon. He is haunting his own house. It is his house. It is his land. It is his property. But then I've seen a strange influx in that particular location of things that were there before the bourbon was there. And they're the things that are older, the elementals, the nature spirits, the things that, at night will come in and say, this area is mine and you will leave now. And they're the ones that you don't argue with.
No, you don't argue with them, but that's what spirit guides are for. Get this cleared. Get this cleared with the that's how I treat things. I did have a question from the chat room. Are you familiar with the chest that was on a Ghost Adventures episode in the Frankfurt Museum?
I am not. I do not watch Ghost Adventures, so I don't know.
So you know
that
nothing
one.
about a haunted chest at the Frankfurt Museum?
No.
So, oh, well. I want to compare notes on Waverly. Now, have you been to Waverly as far as a walkthrough or ghost hunt or whatever several times?
Yes.
Okay. I believe the place is haunted. Don't get me wrong. I when you go in, it has a feel about it, and I guess the way I'm going to ask the question is obviously leading. Do you think Waverly Hills is haunted by any of the original inhabitants?
No, I do not. Are you conspiring back there or what?
No, that is my okay. When you go to Waverly Hills, and of course the tour guides tell you the stories.
Yeah.
And it's the nurse in 501, 504, whatever the hell the number is.
Mm-hmm.
The
ball, all those things.
Yeah. And I've been there and I've experienced and I communicated, and I'm convinced that for lack of a better terminology, it has fresh ghost. I think that the all of the nurses, all of the patients have, maybe not all, but for the vast majority of them have moved on. And we have restocked the place with people wandering around claiming to be the nurse from 501, claiming to be the patient that was, drowned in water. Is that your take on it?
To some extent. I've never got any good human interaction from Waverly, ever. I've seen what I believe to be human spirits there, but they don't fit the history or the stories that were told while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure that they are there for that reason. I think it has more to do with the shadow figures that are there, the things that are essentially, in my mind, controlling and or keeping the other spirits there. I think that they are using them to manifest. I think that they are literally, you've got all these people coming in here. You've got the haunted house. You've got the Christmas lights thing. You've got people in there every weekend going in there to scare themselves, leaving energy, leaving things that draw in these bigger, more aggressive, more able to interact entities that come in, and they can feed and they can interact and they can do whatever they want. And if something, let me be a tall shadow person right now. Let me be the nurse from whatever it is, If that's what lets them manifest, great, let's do it. That makes them scared. That gives me food. That lets me live another day. So in my opinion, I think that they are things that have come to the area because of the attention focused on it. And I think any original ghosts that are there have been probably depleted energetically at this point in time.
Well, I didn't. That's just ugly. I thought enough people had went through like me with prayers but I do agree with you on the on bringing on how it's gotten restocked. Now it didn't occur to me now, although now I have trouble sensing them. But what you described is what I call a soul collector. I like the term soul sucker, but it just doesn't have the ring to it. Now, when we're talking about a soul collector, my feeling on that topic is that it is a form. This is where it gets really weird. I feel like they are formerly human spirits that have become something else, whether it's through a deal with the devil or they devolve or evolve or whatever the hell it is. I do feel like they're a human-based spirit. That's how I would phrase it. And then, but they are the spirit that, as you described, feeds off of the energy of other spirits. I don't know about the living so much. I think, in other words, I don't think it's a direct connection. It might be. I don't know. Is that anywhere near the way you define them?
Those things, in my mind, I've seen them a lot of places. Waverly is probably the most prominent where I've seen them on a regular basis. They are far enough away from human that I don't consider them human anymore, though they do have a very human appearance to them. So they are either aping a human, or like you said, they came from human, or they are, you know what I mean? Like
right.
But if they were alive and did run a skin suit at some point, they are so far beyond that. I don't even know if they have consciousness of it anymore, Like their entire
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Now, this is one of my weaknesses as a professed psychic. Unfortunately, I cannot sense a soul collector. I have to have a psychic with me that can describe what they're sensing, and then I can deal with it. But they I don't know if they can hide from me. I don't know if it's just not in the vibration is wrong or whatever. But the times that I would say that I've encountered them, it was not because I walked in and went, ooh, soul collector. It has to almost be a description from someone else in appearance and activity, etc. So, but you can just walk in. Oh, there's Bob the soul collector. That's cool.
Sort of.
Well, I mean, honestly, I always felt that was one of my limitations, and was that nasty stuff, first of all, avoids me, but it also, I mean, that's good in one way, but in the other, I don't always know what I'm dealing with if I don't have someone with me that I can really trust, because sometimes it takes me a while to dial up Philip, the spirit guide. He's just, some
right. Gotta give him a minute to get over.
And it's not him, it's me. It's me. Okay, cities. You mentioned cities. You seem to feel much more comfortable describing haunted towns and cities to me.
There's bigger items, you know what I mean? There's so many places out there that are just, it's not one place, it's the entire city that is haunted, or the entire stretch of an area that's haunted. Old Louisville, disturbingly haunted area by a ton of different things, like ridiculously haunted, gorgeous old area full of a bunch of random stuff that really should not be there. Like, it doesn't make much sense why what is there is there. There's a town out in East Kentucky, way up in the hills. It's got insane activity, but none of it really makes sense. It's all sort of this native kind of weird folklore mixture of, you can tell it's cultures coming together, but they don't see ghosts. They see things. They hear things. There's just like very, very strange areas that are haunted, but it's not places, it's not a building. It's not, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but now, okay, but I do want you describe things to me.
The things up in the East Kentucky hills?
Yeah. You just can't throw a word like things out to me and think I'm going to let it fly by.
So the area that I'm talking about is actually private property, so I won't give an exact name, but it's a friend of mine whose family all lives on this one big area. And they have these occurrences up there, and there's lots of very, very strange things. The one of them that I can think of the name of at the moment was called The Old Thing That Hollers, because it is the old thing that hollers. It's supposed to, there's a gravel road connecting all the houses on the property, and you'd hear a horse galloping up the road when there would be no one there. You'd hear something screaming, and people that would see said entity would talk about it being something along the lines of almost a chimera, like this horse-like body with its head turned completely around backwards with a strange rider, and sometimes having arms. I mean, it's very strange, very odd creatures. And then our animals will start to go missing. And so they're not sure if it's a physical thing or if it is a non-human thing or if it is a ghost thing. They don't know what it is. But it's said to like live or manifest itself from the caves in the area. But on top of that, you have them seeing ghost lights, heralding death, leading souls away. Almost you're talking about a spirit collector, like the old-fashioned version of one, let me take you over to the other side. And the lights following then to the other side. And there's a creature that hangs out near one of the cemeteries in that exact same area that is much more ethereal than the old thing that hollers, but has a lot of the same sort of attributes. It's clearly a guardian, and it's clearly been there longer than the cemetery has. It is something that is its property, that is its land, and it's not going to let anyone else there. Sort of a homunculus, big, almost ape-like, but dark, you can see through. I mean, it's a thing.
Well, okay, now the second one, I can picture that a little bit easier than a horse with his head back. Although,
yeah, the one
if you can't come up with a better...
I don't know what to do with that at all, but you hear it from multiple sources and you're like, all right, so there's a shared delusion, or they're seeing something very, very strange out running around.
Because the second one you described, I could say, okay, that fits. There's an elemental out there somewhere that fits that description.
Mm-hmm.
Although, people, if you can't come up with a better name than Old Thing That Hollers, I mean,
right?
Just, you need to work on that. We're going to take our final commercial break. We'll be right back with a little bit more from Stephanie Bingham. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more. And we're back with the final segment for tonight of Body and Spirit, brought to you by Mama Rubies. Now my friend Chris Sutton, something you've kind of touched on, he's really getting more and more into the idea that quite often we think of a haunted house or a haunted location, Waverly, whatever, where he believes the haunting goes back, as you kind of touched on, to long before the structure was ever built, Native American, whatever, and something about the property, because Native Americans, by design, whether you believe it or not, would try to use the most spiritual friendly, that's not very eloquent, but spiritually welcoming places to have their ceremonies, to have their holy sites. Mm-hmm. And so therefore those places would be a collective, a place where spiritual energy could collect. And if you happen to build a school or house or whatever on it, then voila, you've got an easy haunting. Is that kind of how you look at that?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of hauntings are due to that earlier energy or entity having staked out a claim on that area. Then you add some new house, they're coming in and possibly destroying the sacred space you're talking about, or at the very least covering it, and people walking around on it, not respecting it. You get a lot of very, very angry, rightfully so, native spirits that are confused and upset as to why these weirdos are suddenly coming in and traipsing all over their spot.
Now, I do want to go back. You said a little bit about old Louisville, about things not belonging there. What doesn't belong in old Louisville that you've encountered? I mean, are we just talking about random spirits, or are we talking about more old things that holler? What's wandering around old Louisville?
I seriously hope it's not the old thing that hollers. I've never seen him there, and I hope to never see him myself ever, because that's just weird. But no, at Old Louisville, there's lots of human spirits there, but there's lots of, it feels a very distinct way. You know, like when you walk into a truly haunted location and it just feels haunted. You know what I mean? It's got that very sort of thick and heavy feeling to it. Old Louisville has a lot of the same thing, but it's an exterior area. It's, you know, a few square blocks. That's all you're talking about. But as you walk through here, you literally, it's a sort of place where it wouldn't surprise me that I've heard people talk about, you know, seeing time slips almost. Like, they're too close together. So you're not actually sure if you're seeing a ghost or if it is literally just the past sort of replaying. You know, it's a very odd location with a lot of strange things. I've never seen an inhuman crawling around in Old Louisville. But the ghosts there, even the ones that know they're ghosts, almost don't seem to care. It's a very unique location. Just the things there and the way it feels and the way things act because of the way it feels, I think.
Well, I mean, I guess I could see where if you got plenty of ghost buddies hanging around, I mean, I can see a ghost being happy in a place.
Mm-hmm.
Because on smaller scale, our local theater that I talk about all the time,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly convinced 2 or 3 of the ghosts have absolutely nothing to do with the building. They just like the place and and hang out there.
Yep.
But once again, you're talking about a place though that who knows, it might, I know nothing about ley lines. I hear the term all the time. I don't know anything about, but I mean, I am of the assumption that there are places on Earth that are spiritual gathering places. I also believe in the some people call it the wormhole theory. I like the term vortex. I really like the term vortex, and I believe every time a human life comes into every time a paranormal event happens, and especially when it's a human life coming or going, that it tears a little hole in the veil. And if those holes kind of coalesce into one place, then you get a doorway that shit goes down. So it's always fun comparing notes with you. Now we're in the final segment. Have you put in your application yet for Scarefest this year? And dear God, tell me you're not talking about serial killers.
I am not talking about serial killers. Not one connected to a coffee can. Promise I'm not.
Okay. What are we trying to get through the door this year?
Voodoo. Talking about that, and I was looking at early American ghost hunting. It's actually what I did my master's thesis on, the spiritualist movement, that early sort of surge of interest directly after and during the Civil War, and how that sort of opened the doors really for what we do today.
I did it really?
Yeah.
Because I still want to blame movies. I think it all started with The Exorcist, and
But if you look at The Exorcist, especially, it came from an interaction with a Ouija board or a talking
exactly.
board.
The Ouija board was a harmless parlor game.
Yes, and spiritualists are what made those parlor games popular.
True. No, that once again, it sounds very, very interesting, and is obviously an area that I've been too lazy to actually research, because once again, everybody, I watch too much TV. That's how I got to where I am. If you had to tell someone right now in the state of Kentucky, which I think you've already answered this, but tell them again, if they want a true likelihood of having a paranormal experience, where would you send them in the state of Kentucky?
Jim Beam is active. Waverly is active. Old Louisville is active. You said it too. Bobby Mackey's is active. I mean, there's so many places that are so active. It's just a matter of knowing what you're looking for and not doing the mental gymnastics to say, oh no, that door just opens. Yeah, it was totally just the wind and this closed room with no windows open. Yeah, that's what it was. You have to be open to the experience to some extent. You can't explain away all the ghosts.
No, but I will say at Waverly Hills in the tunnel, in the hallway going to the death tunnel, there is a door that if you walk past it too fast, you create enough breeze to make that door move. I've seen it done.
Body shoot at Waverly Hills, part of the ceiling fell on my head, so I'll leave that to you.
Well, now what type of ghost would do that to her? Now, you want to know the most haunted place, I think, in Waverly Hills? Now, this is where I kind of touched on where I think we keep restocking the place.
Uh-huh.
Go to the death tunnel, but keep walking. I think most of them are at the bottom of the death tunnel waiting for their turn to get in.
I could see that. Could definitely see that.
And once again, it's because...
portal area.
Yeah, and once again, it's because we're walking around the place with flashlights going, why are you here? How did you die? And all that good stuff. Everybody, another fun episode of Body and Spirit. I hope you enjoyed it. Stephanie, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Looking forward to see what you bring to Scarefest this year. And of course, she's going to be speaking. I don't even know why she bothers with the application. But it's always a good time talking to you. And everybody, twice a month we're doing Body and Spirit until we decide that it's worth doing more often when I can stay up that late. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.